The Australian government has announced that non-citizens of the country will now be able to join the Australian Defence Forces from 2025. This move is to tackle regional threats amidst Australia's struggle with enlistment shortfalls. According to the new announcement, nationals who are permanent residents of Australia and meet the eligibility criteria can apply to join. This includes nationals from New Zealand, the United Kingdom, the United States of America and Canada, who work closely together in intelligence sharing under an alliance called the Five Eyes. Mexico has appointed its first female president. 61-year-old Claudia Sheinbaum will succeed her political mentor and current president Andrés Manuel López Obrador on the 1st of October. Before starting her career in politics as mayor of Mexico City, she had an illustrious career as an environmental scientist. She has promised to continue to build on the advances made by Obrador, further building on welfare programs. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned that humanity is on a highway to climate hell. Concerning data from the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service shows each month from June 2023 to May 2024 was the hottest such month on record globally. The average global temperature for this 12-month period was a staggering 1.63 degrees Celsius or 2.9 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels. And to understand the current climate catastrophe and how the man-made actions are impacting the environment, we talked to Professor Raghu Murtugudde, climate science expert at IIT Bombay. He is on a trek in Sonmarg where he walked over meadows where there were glaciers before. Dr. Murtugudde took out time to speak to us. The network was choppy, but he reiterated that tunnel vision will not work and all stakeholders need to work together to mitigate the effects of climate change. Take a look. Onus is only always on the general population, whereas big countries, corporate leaders, they continue to engage in war, continue to do whatever it takes to further their interests, and nobody is really caring about the environment.
I should clarify my position here. I'm generally not a big fan of such language, hell and
Okay.
war and so on. But and I know I have written extensively on why 1.5 degrees is such an artificial. It's not a scientific target. So at every level of warming, we're at 1.3. Last year we spiked to about maybe 1.4. We'll probably go back next year. So everything is happening now, so we don't have to wait for 1.5. And as you may know, 2 degrees C and 1.5 degrees C are something that came out arbitrarily and politically became popular, and scientists have bent backward to try to fit everything into it. Keeping that in mind, your question is critical. Who is responsible and who has to take action? So there are many problems. One is, of course, governments want to take action, but there are not that many solutions right now. Everything we have is carbon. We are still relying heavily on fossil fuels. Renewables are growing fast in number, but not fast enough. Corporations commit to something, but a lot of greenwashing happens because their profit motive always comes first. You can find many examples, but we should also remember that corporations are not some particular person. We all own shares. You and I may be having retirement accounts, and we don't even know where the investment is made from our retirement account. So corporations are not separate from us. We are all in it. So in this sense, I think governments, corporations, NGOs, and people have to work together. On the other hand, we have to also make sure that we don't scare the children about the future. We have to be, optimistic in the way we are going to solve it. But this is, of course, a critical time in terms of how much we have to move forward on mitigation, on implementation of renewables and efficient cars and EVs and so on. So yes, we are all in this together.
India has lost 6,68,400 hectares reportedly of forest area in the past 5 years, and this is the second highest, amount or second highest area of forest in the world. So, how does one strike the balance between growth, between development, and between conservation?
So forest loss and deforestation also has to be taken in the context that in India's commitment to Paris Agreement, we said we will enhance forest covers to increase our carbon uptake. And there is some satellite data that shows that the green cover over India has increased, but almost 80% of it actually came from agricultural greenery because they only look at leaf area cover from satellites, not forest or agriculture or something else. Maybe about 17% came from forest cover. So government is trying to do afforestation, but there are other issues. Where do you plant trees? Do you displace people? That seems to have happened in some places. So indigenous people have to be allowed to continue their livelihoods, which depends maybe on living harmoniously with the forests. So you cannot throw them out in the name of reducing carbon emissions or taking up more carbon. So tunnel vision on anything can be a problem. So we want to reduce emissions and take up more carbon, and some of that will include increasing forest cover. And then we are cutting down trees to make pathways to pilgrimages and so on, because Indians are growing in wealth and they want to travel more and they want to do more pilgrimage. So the balance is more important. Where is degraded land that actually lost forest cover, and how can we recover? So afforestation, new forest cover is one thing, not degrading the forests is another thing, and protecting the forests is the third thing, and just generally preventing people from willy-nilly cutting down in the name of development, whether it's urbanization or whether it's agricultural land or roads and highways and so on and so forth. It's a complicated issue, but also who controls the decisions from the central government to the state to the local governments. So this line of command has to be very clearly defined.
Maldives has announced it will ban Israeli passport holders from entering the country amidst the escalating Gaza war. The predominantly Muslim island country Maldives had 11,000 Israelis visiting last year, which was 0.6% of total tourist arrivals. President Muizu has also announced a national fundraising campaign called Maldivians in Solidarity with Palestine. In response to this, the Israeli government has asked its citizens to explore Indian beaches. A recent special report from a high-level Canadian parliamentary committee has labelled India as the second biggest foreign threat to Canada's democracy. The report named China as the #1 threat. India emerged as the second most significant foreign interference threat to Canada's democratic institutions and processes, said the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians report. This move has come after Trudeau already accused India of pro-Khalistan Sikh Canadian Hardeep Singh Nijjar's assassination. The brutal ongoing massacre in Sudan has now claimed more than 100 lives in a day. A pro-democracy activist committee has highlighted this in a report. The report said paramilitaries had invaded the village, causing dozens of casualties and widespread displacement. The Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, which have been at war with the regular army since April 2023, on Wednesday attacked the central village of Wad al-Noura in Al Jazeera state. The United Nations has asked for a thorough probe. Hello, you're watching Global Compass, the weekly show that updates you on all that has been happening around the world. In this next segment, we look into some of the stories specifically featured on Strat News Global. Russia's state nuclear agency Rosatom has signed a memorandum of understanding at Russia's annual economic forum in St. Petersburg with a Chinese shipping company to establish a year-round container line between the two countries via the Arctic's North Sea route. Putin has decided to shift its trade eastwards in response to Western sanctions over the conflict in Ukraine. Pentagon's Defense Security Cooperation Agency announced on Wednesday that the US State Department has approved an $80 million sale of spare and repair parts for F-16 fighter jets to Taiwan. In a statement, DSCA said that the sale will help improve the security of the recipient and assist in maintaining political stability, military balance, and economic progress in the region. On June 4th, hundreds of people in Canada, Taiwan, and Hong Kong gathered to commemorate the Tiananmen massacre. 35 years ago on this day, China's Communist Party unleashed tanks and troops on students demanding freedom and democracy in Beijing's Tiananmen Square. Thousands died, Many had to flee the country and never return. An estimated 180,000 troops and armed police rolled in with tanks and armored vehicles and fired into crowds, killing hundreds and thousands of civilian protesters. Any discussion on the crackdown remains strictly forbidden in China. Indian-American astronaut Sunita Williams embarked on her third space mission on Wednesday, piloting a spacecraft from the Cape Canaveral Space Station in Florida. She was accompanied by fellow NASA astronaut Barry Butch Wilmore, heading toward the International Space Station. The test flight had faced multiple delays. Starliner's success will determine if the spacecraft will be certified to fly 6-month astronaut missions to and from the ISS for NASA. As the general elections commence in India, foreign leaders from Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Ukrainian President Zelensky congratulated Prime Minister Modi on his third term in the Indian Parliament. Although the general elections of 2024 observed a declining popularity of Prime Minister Modi, who could only manage to win 240 seats, significantly lower compared to 303 seats in 2019. Taking the story of the surprising results of the Lok Sabha elections in India forward, I spoke to Seema Sirohi, Washington-based journalist and columnist, for her views on how the international media has been perceiving and covering India's Lok Sabha election results. Here is an excerpt. What were the main narratives that were highlighted by the international media when it came to the results?
Thank you for having me. And yes, the election coverage has been very interesting. In the run up to the election, most of the coverage, I would say, was negative in some form or another. There was a lot of talk about the opposition not having enough space, the arrest of Kejriwal and Rahul Gandhi, and Congress party's funds being frozen, etc. So there was a lot of coverage of that, and whether Indian democracy has is under stress in the run up. And I would like to mention that in the New York Times, they must have found just about every academic in South Asian studies to sort of weigh in. And most of those articles were negative and very quite strongly negative. After the results came out, and the BJP did not win the kind of number of seats that it expected, there was almost, you could feel the glee in the writing. There's a kind of glee is the best word to describe it. Everyone's enjoying the fact that he did not win the 400 seats as projected and as he had talked about. So most of the coverage is about how his aura of invincibility is now cracked, how he has got a rebuke from the Indian voter, how he has been humbled. There's a lot of emphasis on all that. And how, yes, and then the second part of the narrative is, oh, well, the Indian democracy works, that the voters can choose to punish someone they are unhappy with. And everyone noted the fact that the Prime Minister's party did not win in Ayodhya, where the Ram temple was inaugurated.
You can watch the entire interview on Strat News Global tomorrow. I hope you have subscribed to this channel already and gotten your friends and family who are interested in foreign affairs to do the same. Of course, I hope you will like and share this show as well. And it's time to wrap up this week's Global Compass. But before we let you go, here are some beautiful visuals from Egypt's International Festival for Drums and Traditional Arts. Through protest songs and revolutionary melodies, a Palestinian folklore troupe, Al-Fallujah, uses art as a form of resistance to preserve the Palestinian heritage amid the ongoing war in Gaza. Themed art is resistance, the troupe's choreography is aimed at documenting part of Palestinian sufferings during Israel's war in Gaza. Take a look, take care, see you next week.